Summer routines live or die by how easy they are, and honestly, if something takes too much effort, I'm out. That's why Groons is my go-to. It's my one daily pack of gummies covering my greens, vitamins, and minerals. Plus, it has 6 grams of prebiotic fiber, which is more than 2 cups of broccoli. No mixing powders, no giant pills, no hassle. I just rip open the pack and I'm done. They taste good and they make it easy to stay on top of my health, even when life gets busy. Save up to 52% with the code PODCAST at Groons.co. That's code PODCAST at GRUNS.co.
It's the Go Gopher Podcast with Mike Grimm, episode number 33. I am Mike Grimm, voice of the Golden Gophers, and welcome back to the podcast. Well, we're going to go a little off the beaten path from the Gophers this week, just a bit for the show. We're talking some high school sports with the great John Millea in our co-podcast. John is media specialist for the Minnesota State High School League, and we have some fun telling our stories of our backgrounds on this podcast. Just a couple of small-town guys from Iowa living their dreams here in the Twin Cities. Stick around. I hope you enjoy some of the stories and hope you enjoy learning a little bit more about both of us. John's podcast is called Preps Today with John Millea. And of course, you're listening right now to the Go Gopher Podcast, which is presented by alumni-owned Sunbelt Business Advisors and True North Mergers and Acquisitions. If you're a business founder planning to exit your business, start by contacting Sunbelt Business Advisors and True North Mergers and Acquisitions. Sunbelt serves more businesses up to $5 million in revenue than anyone, and True North M&A serves companies with revenues up to $150 million. You can get a confidential, no-cost, no-obligation business valuation started today. Make the most of your life's work. You can do so by visiting sunbeltminnesota.com or tnma.com today. In addition to their great work business-wise, they do so much for the community. Our podcast is also sponsored by State Farm agent Tony Hoagland at ChamplinInsurance.com. Tony is a big Gopher fan. And it's my pleasure to welcome to the podcast another great Golden Gopher supporter. We're so proud now to welcome Affinity Plus Federal Credit Union on board. Their partnership began a couple of weeks ago with the Go Gopher Podcast. Affinity Plus Federal Credit Union is your local Minnesota credit union for all of your banking needs, including the top-rated mobile app. You can learn more at affinityplus.org/go-gophers. Sounds great, right? With the Go Gopher Podcast. Affinity Plus, welcome aboard. I invite you to also subscribe to our podcast. It's free to click the subscribe button. You can listen at any time for free. You can go back and listen to our previous podcast as well, including last week's show, which was a great one. The Gopher Strength and Conditioning Coordinator, Dan Nickel, told us all about what goes on in the Golden Gopher football team's weight room. When we come back this week, it's high school sports, Gophers, and great stories from the media world with John Millea from the Minnesota State High School League. But first, a word from Tony.
Hey, Gopher fans, this is your State Farm agent, Tony Hoagland. We are super excited to be part of the new Mike Grimm Show on Talk North. For the year of 2022, we will be donating $10 to the University of Minnesota Children's Masonics Hospital for everyone that calls our office or checks in with us online and mentions that they heard about us on Talk North and the Mike Grimm Show. We are really excited again that Mike came on board with Talk North. You can reach us at 763-421-4900. You can find us on the web at ChamplinInsurance.com. Again, 763-421-4900, or find us on the web at ChamplinInsurance.com. Roll the boat, Sky Yuma, go Gophers.
We have a fun podcast today for you. Hope you'll enjoy it this week. I'm Mike Grimm with the Go Gopher Podcast, and we're just in our infancy, episode number 33. And with us as part of our podcast is we're tag teaming here, episode 212. Preps Today with John Millea. John, hello.
Mike, it's good to see you.
We're going to have some fun here. Yeah. You came up with this idea. Let's do a little co-hosting of a podcast because we have a few things in common. We're, of course, you're big into the high school sports, and much of my early career was spent doing scoreboard shows for high schools, high school football game of the week, high school basketball game of the week, and we both grew up. Now that we live here, I guess we can say to that hated state to the south, but we're Iowegians, and we can talk about that a little bit too.
You bet. Yeah, it's good to see a fellow Iowan. There's a lot of us up here in Minnesota, though. That's the thing. There's a lot of us.
You see occasionally driving down the road, an Iowa State bumper sticker, a Hawkeye, or Northern Iowa, and then you see Iowa license plates because they have to come here to shop.
That's it. And in Iowa, the license plates have the county on them. You can pinpoint those guys.
No doubt. Funny, 2 weeks ago I was in Sioux City, Iowa. I'd never been there for a wedding for a friend of our family by the last name of Woodbury. So
Woodbury
guess what?
County.
Woodbury County. So we're at the hotel, and the whole parking lot's full of license plates. We're at a wedding with the last name Woodbury, and people from Minnesota are going, how did they get their license plates to have their last name? All these Woodburys here.
Talk about personalized plates.
My home is Delaware. It says Delaware County. What, you're Grettinger?
Grettinger, Iowa. South. I tell Minnesotans, if you know where Fairmont and Jackson are, about 40 miles or so south of there. So
football factory, too.
We've had our run in Grettinger. When I was a senior in high school, 1976, the fall of 76, we played in a Class A state championship game at the then brand new Unidome at the University of Northern Iowa on that turf that was like concrete. We did not win. I don't talk about that a lot. And then I think 4 or 5 or 6 years later, one of my younger brothers, same thing, got to the state championship game. Again, we're 0-2 in the Unidome, but great football, and it's a story of little small town shrinking. Like we were the Grettinger Pirates for 100 years, and then at some point in the 80s or 90s, they became the Grettinger Terrell Knights. Now it's the Grettinger Terrell Ruthven Ayrshire Titans.
Wow.
So there used to be 4 school districts. Now there's 2. Grettinger Terrell, that's a district. Ruthven Ayrshire, that's a district. And they co-op in every sport.
Is it
just
an
to have
8-man
enough
football,
kids.
or is it full 11?
They're full 11-man, I think, now. They've been 9-man.
It's 9.
8-man. No, it's 8-man.
It's 8 there, right? 9 here.
They've kind of gone back and forth from 8-man to Class A, and I think they're back to 11-man football now, but it's tough.
So what license plate, what's the county in Grettinger?
Palo Alto.
Oh, Palo Alto.
Yes.
So I worked 9 years in Cedar Rapids at WMT, which, it was a nice big AM station. I did, first job, I did the overnight show, 10 p.m., until 4 a.m. I hosted a general talk show with no call. I'm the only guy in the building, so it's just like, "Hello, caller, you're on the air." And then who knows, right? What you get drunk people, you get a lot of the same people. We kind of almost had a cast of characters. But my favorite part of early in that, and I was getting paid almost nothing to do that, was on Friday nights. At that time, this was my first job was 1993, and there was no internet. I don't think there was no internet. There wasn't email. And so there's no Twitter. So to get your high school scores, people jump in the car. They're driving home from their games. Guess what? They flip on 600 a.m. And so I was well known right off the bat because it was so many people. And so, of course, I got a big kick out of I'd be driving. Hey, I heard you on the radio giving the scores. And I was an organized guy. I put it in the districts, and I had it organized. And so coaches liked that because they could listen. They knew when their district was coming up, and then they knew to listen closely to see. Because back then, there's no cell phones even. No. So you're not calling someone to say, hey, like my high school is West Delaware, they'd be interested in, say, like what Decorah was doing. And now you just 2 punches of a button, basically, and you find the score. But back then, you had to listen to WMT to get the score.
It was different, and you've mentioned Sioux City and Cedar Rapids. I went to college in Sioux City for 2 years. I worked at the Cedar Rapids Gazette for a year and a half way back then. So, and I'm proud to say I was the sports editor of the Ottumwa Courier for about 18 months.
Ottumwa, is that Tom Arnold's hometown?
Yes.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Well, see, and back then it was Radar O'Reilly's hometown.
Yes, right, from MASH.
Then Tom Arnold and Roseanne Barr became big, so Tom Arnold's hometown. But I started in college at Briarcliff in Sioux City for 2 years, transferred to Drake in Des Moines. And started working at the Des Moines Register, the newspaper I grew up reading. God bless my mom and dad for subscribing to
the Big Peach.
The Big Peach, just like here. The Star Tribune used to have the Big Peach. They used to be owned by the same company. And went to Drake, started working part-time at the Des Moines Register. My first night of employment there was the first Friday night of high school football, kind of like your radio thing. There's 1 million phone calls coming in from every game in the state, and I'm answering phones, writing down scores, a few details, and absolutely loved it. I'm looking at all these nameplates on these desks of these guys I'd read my whole life. Maury White, Buck Turnbull, Ron Malley, Chuck Burdick was the preps guy. I got to know them all, work with them all, and then, of course, I stayed on as I finished college. Well, when I was a senior in college, I was working 40 hours a week on the sports desk.
At the Register.
At the Register. I'm set for life. This is my dream. I'm set for life. And about a year and a half after I graduated, the Des Moines Tribune was the afternoon paper. They closed it. And layoffs. So I went from there, lucky to get a job in Ottumwa.
Yep.
Then the Cedar Rapids Gazette. Loved it there. Did a lot of University of Iowa stuff, as you know. And then ended up in Phoenix for 6 years at the Arizona Republic, the newspaper there. Then came to the Star Tribune in 1991, came back home, and that's 31 years ago.
Yeah.
Boy, time flies.
It does.
Yeah.
I was just back at this wedding. People that I knew were asking, this would be what, your 9th year of the Gophers? How about 17?
Yeah.
It's crazy. I can't believe
flies.
17.
It just flies.
We moved here. My son and daughter were first graders and kindergartners. My son just graduated from college. My daughter is going to be a senior in college, and I don't know where that all went.
It's unbelievable. Yeah, when we moved here, our daughter, who's 31, she spent the first 20 days of her life in Arizona. It was talk about getting hired at the Star Tribune. Your wife's about to give birth, and it's March. They want you right now to help out with March. Can I start in May? We're having a baby. I got a house to sell. It worked out great. And our two little boys one of them started kindergarten here. The other one, I think, second grade, and now I'm a grandpa. The older one has 2 kids, and how did that happen,
Here we
Mike?
are, right?
Yeah,
here we are, no doubt. So what year did you get to Minneapolis?
91.
91.
Yep.
Gotcha.
March.
And you covered preps for the Star Tribune then?
Well, I was on the desk for 6 years.
Okay.
And was introduced to editing the Sid Hartman column.
Yes.
And
so you had that role for a while.
I was one of those people who did that, and God bless Sid. He could be hard on people, but he never took that for granted. The people who translated his column from Sid into English.
Yes.
And when you got to work and you saw your assignments for the night and you saw the Sid column, you rolled up your sleeves and got to work.
The info was always great.
It was there.
It just you had to sift through some of it.
It was names were not spelled correctly. The sentences weren't properly formed.
But nobody could get info like him at that time.
Oh,
right?
unbelievable. No, there's been nobody. I don't know of anybody like Sid ever anywhere.
Just remarkable. We could do a whole podcast. I mean, there have been podcasts about that.
Absolutely, yeah. So I was a desk guy, writing headlines, laying out pages, waiting for the writers to file their stories. Let's edit these, let's proof the pages, and then moved to the sports writing side of it in 96 and kind of did everything, kind of a general assignment sports reporter from the get-go. I helped cover the Wild their first couple of years, Timberwolves for years, did 40, 50 Twins games some year, home and away, and I wasn't a Vikings writer, but I was always thrown into the beat for the playoffs.
Sure.
So every one of those huge, disappointing Vikings losses,
you were there?
I was there writing from the other team's locker room before the loss to the Falcons at the Metrodome, that famous NFC championship game. I had been sent to Atlanta the week before where the 49ers and Falcons played, and the Falcons won that game. I spent the week in Atlanta hanging out with the Atlanta Falcons. This is pre-internet. This is me and 5 people from Atlanta media for the week, and it was fun. It was fun. I wasn't cheering for the visiting team that day at the Metrodome, but these are good guys. This is okay.
No doubt. And then you got then because your identity kind of turned into preps.
Right. Yeah. At some point, I moved. I'd done preps kind of all the way through, just here and there, helping, pitching in, and then kind of moved to that permanently. Just loved it because, as I tell a lot of people, there's not a lot of things everybody has in common, but we all went to high school. A lot of us were involved in activities, whether it's sports or arts, whatever. Everybody knows what that's like, and I really love that about writing about high school sports. And through that job came to cover the Minnesota State High School League, where I've been working for 12 years now. Covered board meetings, just the business of the league, all the tournaments. And I was talking to Dave Stead, the now retired executive director, on the phone. I don't even know what story I was working on. I was at home talking to Dave just about something run-of-the-mill prep story involving the high school league. And there was controversy swirling at the time, and people were mad at the state high school league. I don't remember the details. And this thought popped into my head as I'm talking with Dave Stead. I said, have you ever thought about having a staff position, kind of a PR, kind of somebody to tell the stories? Because because at that point they would make decisions, no comment. Yeah. And people were mystified, and he hadn't thought of that. At the time, no high school governing body in the country had anybody like that. And Dave was very smart. He basically created this position. My title's media specialist. Yep. At some point in the process, and it was a lengthy process, I thought, I was perfectly happy at the paper. I was more than happy at the paper. I loved the newspaper business. That's all I knew. But they posted this position. I looked at it and I'm going to apply for this. And they interviewed, I don't know, half a dozen people. And at the time, the Star Tribune, this is pre-Glenn Taylor owning the Star, it was ugly down there.
Sure.
Layoffs, buyouts, benefits getting cut. And it was a pretty easy decision at the time. And I know some people were just stumped why I would leave the newspaper for this job that nobody knew what this job was.
Right.
I had a pretty good sense of what it could be. And it was lightning in a bottle. I wasn't going to get another opportunity. I get to stay in the preps world. I get to do what I want to do and go all over the state, which is
tell great stories.
Tell these stories. Yeah. You know, it's professional sports, even D1 college sports. There are limitations a lot of times on the media. High school sports. I was up in Royalton last week on the first day of football practice. The coach says, hey, we're going to have a team meeting before we go out to the field. You want to come in? Yeah, sure.
Yes.
So next week I'm going to go down to Leroy Ostrander for the defending 9-man football state champions first game. I'm riding the bus with the team to their road games.
Beautiful.
So, yeah, it's great. It's just great, Mike.
And you're right. You said lightning in a bottle, maybe in more ways than one, too, because it also, I think, all evolved as so much started to evolve in terms of how people consume their content, right?
Oh,
and
absolutely.
Twitter and Facebook and internet and web pages and all that stuff. It turned into almost just this golden.
Yeah.
I mean, now it's your legendary car you're driving around, and you've got the blogs and you've got stories, and it really did blow up.
Yeah, I had a Twitter account at the paper.
Yeah.
I didn't know much about Facebook. Our oldest son was in college. He was home, or we were there in Chicago visiting him, and he's telling us about this thing called Facebook. We'd never heard the word. And he said, you guys can't be on it because you have to have an email address that ends in edu. It was just for college kids. Started at Harvard, worked its way across the country, and it came out okay.
Yeah.
It became a thing.
It turned okay, yes.
But with Twitter and I run the high school league Facebook page. We have Instagram and TikTok and the whole thing, which for an old timer like me, I that's not my wheelhouse. I guess Twitter is great. I love Twitter because you can get on there and have fun and spread information and tell these stories, put links to what's on my John's Journal site at mshsl.org. And it's fantastic. It's not work at all.
Yeah, that's the beauty of when you do what you love.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like a job. You mentioned at the time that you guys had started talking about this, that the high school league was, and I think there's still people who the high school league's messed this up or that up. It's a hard job because you have so many constituents, whether it's fans, schools, coaches, athletes. You can't please everybody ever. No. But that said, and I know people think, they're only worried about this or they're only worried about that. And it's same with like I'm with the Gophers and people, they don't care. They just want money.
Right.
Of course they want money.
Sure.
But there's so many good people that want to do right. And if you were there every day, like you are and like I am with the Gophers, the vast majority, and I don't mean like 58%, I mean like 98%, maybe 99%, the decisions are made based on what they truly believe are going to be the best results for the people that really are important to the whole thing, usually the student athletes, and then you go from there. But that doesn't mean it's perfect. That doesn't mean mistakes aren't made. So how was that for you when you first transitioned? Because you went from a guy who's covering and trying to maybe find out, hey, is this the right decision, wrong decision, to now you're on maybe the other side where you want to tell good stories and showcase what's happening.
Yeah, I live tweet from high school league board of directors meetings. There's 6 of them a year, and if they're talking about shot clocks or things like that, people are paying attention.
Of course, yeah.
And it's been an eye-opening thing for me because I covered the league for years. I thought I knew how this place operated.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I knew everything. I'm still learning 13 years in because it's not the NCAA. People think it's like the NCAA, that there's an enforcement division and these transfer rules, everybody's violating them. Well, we don't have an enforcement division. Right. But whether it's transfers or how state tournaments work or ticket prices or why can't I get a program in my hand? Why does it have to be online? Well, things evolve, things change, and that's hard for people. But it's the people that work there and have worked there. There's been a pretty good turnover of staff in my time there. I'm one of the old timers now. There was a joke. I was on double secret probation because I was the new guy for about 3 years. And they're all great people. If you're going to become an administrator at the high school league, basically you've been a coach, you've been a teacher, you've been an athletic director, you've been a principal or a superintendent. You know this world. Mm-hmm. They know the educational world. I don't. I'm a media guy. I'm a reporter. But there isn't anybody there who doesn't work super hard, way past 40 hours a week, year round, basically.
Right.
and their phone's always ringing, their email box is always dinging, and they do a great job. And just, but you're right, just the communications. It used to be if somebody anywhere had an issue with the state high school league, you might make a phone call, you probably write a letter.
Yeah.
And now there are meetings. When COVID started, we started having Zoom meetings with every athletic director in the state who wanted to be on there. Here's what's happening right now. And now they're every other week, but it's you couldn't do that 5 years ago.
Right.
Get everybody on the same Zoom meeting. What was Zoom? That's what an airplane does.
Yeah.
And so the communication has really, really been great, like in every other walk of life. But yeah, people think the high school league's all about the money. Yeah, the high school league needs money to keep these programs going for these kids. But for me, it goes back to when I was interviewed for this job. Part of the process was I was in a room with, I think, 6 high school league people, employees in the office. They were doing mass group interviews with the finalists. And Kevin Merkel, also now retired, great staff member for a long time. I distinctly remember Kevin asking me, okay, John, this job, this media specialist, what's the most important thing about this job? If you see yourself in this, what's the most important thing? And it was a no-brainer. The kids. The kids. That's this whole building. Everybody here, it's about the kids. And I've tried to maintain that through my work. And I've told a few people when I'm writing about high school kids, I want to treat them like they're my kids because they are. They're all of our kids.
Yes.
And we got to treat them right. And sure, issues come up. Kids do things they shouldn't. We all did that. We've all been there.
Yes.
But that's the whole thing with the high school league. It's about the kids, whether you're talking ticket prices or anything. It's about the kids. If you don't like the ticket prices, well, that they're set in a way to keep the high school league healthy. Money goes back to schools at the end of the year. And, it's all about the kids. It really is.
For sure. I was heartened. I watched some of the Little League World Series over the weekend, some of those games. In fact, there's a team from Iowa, our home state, in there right now. They beat Utah, I think, the game I was watching. And as that game was going on, the Red Sox and the Orioles, they played that game Sunday night. Yeah. And they were arriving. And I don't remember which Red Sox player it was. I think it may have been J.D. Martinez. He was being interviewed on the TV by a student reporter. And she said, what's your advice to the Little Leaguers? And my hunch is she was thinking he'd say, stay back on the pitch or hit to all fields or whatever. And he had a 2-word answer, have fun. And I'm like, bingo, that's the whole, that's why we do this,
so
right?
Many times. Yeah. I was at the Vikings practice on Thursday. Really cool story. The 49ers were here to practice with the Vikings. Trey Lance, the number 1 quarterback, is from Marshall. The Vikings, who are so good at so many things, they got a hold of Terry Ballman, the Marshall football coach, a week before. You want to bring your team here? We'll pay for the buses. Wow. Trey Lance finds out his hometown high school team is coming. He pays for their meals. So 3 hours on a bus from Marshall. They watched practice. They got VIP access. They're down on the field level. And there was just so many great parts of this. They got to meet with Trey and get photos and selfies and get autographs. But the Vikings brought in Chad Greenway and Ben Lieber, just kind of gathered the 105 Marshall Tigers, kind of pulled them off to the side. And Ben and Chad kind of had the same kind of message. Hey, watch your position guys out here on an NFL field. See what they're doing, but soak everything in. Have fun. Yeah. And Chad, who I've known Chad Greenway now for quite a while because his kids are involved in high school sports. He's a big booster. So we were chatting out there. But when he talked to the Marshall kids, he said, basically, I played in the Big Ten at the University of Iowa. I played in the NFL. My favorite memories are competing with my buddies in high school, and kids can't hear that enough from players on that level. Yeah.
So true. Yeah. I was just back in my hometown this past weekend and hanging out with a couple of buddies, and we did. Luckily, I say this luckily just in relation to this story. I've always would want my wife around, of course, but she was not on the trip, so luckily she didn't have to hear these stories rehashed for the 90th time because she goes to the other room and rolls her eyes, and she's like, "You guys have told that story every time I come back." I'm like, "Of course we have.
That's what you do.
Why wouldn't we?
Why not? Right?
I mean, oh yeah, I remember we played Clarence Loudon, and we were ranked, and they weren't, and they upset us, and I got picked off first base, only time in my career. And you remember that junk, right?
You do.
It's like, what the heck? And I can't remember literally what I just had for lunch an hour ago, but I can remember 1989 getting picked off at first base, only time in my life.
I can remember that feeling in 1976 in the Unidome. The game was close and down to the wire. Yeah. We did not win, and I'll never forget that feeling. Yeah. And we talk about it, we laugh about it, but when I'm at a state tournament now, Minnesota state championship game, any sport, I always pay attention to the team that didn't win. Because I've told coaches this after games. I know how they feel. It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
It's never going to be perfect, but it's going to be okay.
And when it's not okay, like you'll recognize his name, the great Ron Skipper, the coach at Central.
You bet.
He's kind of Iowa, what Coach Gaggs was here.
Yeah.
They would go to Division III championships all the time. I think he won a couple. He finally retired because the losses took such a toll on him.
Yeah, that's something.
They got to be so good.
Yeah.
That wins were just,
that's expected.
Then you lose, and he's like, it's a funeral.
It's devastating.
You lose one game a year, and your season's over. And he's like, I can't.
We all strive for perfection. I'm not at that point. If I get a typo in a headline, it's gonna ruin my day, but not gonna ruin the next.
We won't retire yet, right? Yeah. But that eventually, I think I remember interviewing him. Central's playing Wartburg. I don't know if he's still the coach now, but Mark Kakmarinsky was the star player for Central at the time. He broke his leg in the games. I was doing the broadcast on WMT and interviewing Ron Skipper afterwards, and he's crying, tears running down his face, talking about they knew it was a broken leg, he's out, and he's crying, tears running down his face. And so, it's some of those stories, Division III, high school, even, at the higher levels, I see it all the time with the Gophers, how coaches care for kids and how it goes. So
I'm so, we all should thank our educators and our teachers and our coaches, and I always try to do that. Nobody's more important in this world than teachers and coaches. So, and my mom is a retired elementary teacher. One of our kids is a teacher, and boy, there's just nothing better.
Nothing better. Yeah. And here in Minnesota with the unions and different things, it's pretty good. I mean, I still think teachers are underpaid, but it's pretty good here. There's some places that aren't as good around the country.
Yeah, one of our other kids lives in Mesa, Arizona, where he was born.
Yeah,
he's back there. He's a longtime teacher. He's got 2 music degrees from the University of Minnesota, and then a master's and a doctorate in percussion from Arizona State. He stayed down there, and music teacher for a long time, professional musician. He kind of got out of it. He's now a computer guy. During COVID, he kind of became trained as a website designer. Now works for an international tech company. I can't blame him.
Yeah.
Teachers in Arizona it's not like teaching in Minnesota.
Is that right? Yeah.
The pay and everything. It's just not as good. So we're lucky here.
We're lucky, and it still can be better. I mean,
absolutely.
Right? I mean, at the end of the day, but we do have a really good system here. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Going back, I was going to tell a few stories about. I went to Luther College in Decorah, in Iowa, and then my first job was in WMT in Cedar Rapids. Mentioned it this overnight job with this weird call-in show from 1 to 3. But the highlight early, my first 3 or 4 years, was doing this prep scores, and then I slowly worked into some sports and some news, and then. I'm going to say it was about 97. At that time, WMT pretty much blanketed the eastern half of the state. And this was back in the 80s and 90s when car radios were built to pick up AM. Like, you can't get AM very well now on a car because But back then you could pick up, and I'd listen to CCO radio. I'd listen to KMOX in St. Louis, where weird enough now through my career I've been on both those stations a great deal, which has been kind of a thrill. And WHO in Des Moines had that great clear channel. I was on that station for a while. Anyway, the station WMT in Cedar Rapids. 97 or so, I'm trying to recall, they had always done a game of the week. High school game of the week, and so I got chosen to be the new voice of that. So it was so cool. We would do on Thursday nights, they would play at Kingston Stadium in Cedar Rapids, which is the municipal stadium.
Been there.
5, 6, 7 high schools in Cedar Rapids would share. So one would have to play on a Thursday, and that usually take up 2 teams, and then another 2 would play on Friday. Then the rest would either have to play road games or Linn-Mar, which nobody cares. Nobody here probably cares, but Linn-Mar had its own field.
I've been there.
Prairie, where my nieces graduated from, they had their own field. So there was enough. But we would go Thursday to the game at Kingston, and then we would pick the area game of the week on Friday. So it would be Solon and Lisbon, Benton Community in West Delaware, Iowa City High and Iowa City West, all these great rivalries. And, I had a buddy who was in the print business, so we printed up these pullovers, and I had the gear. So we walked in feeling like $1 million on Friday.
Monday Night Football.
And you could just see people like, WMT's doing a game.
It's
and then
huge.
we call the game. And then I'd get every week, I don't know, 8, maybe that's 6 or 7 people. Again, this is email was just starting probably. But hey, can I get a tape of the game? So I'd say send the tape. Half my job then became dubbing cassettes for parents because I wasn't going to charge them or whatever, but it did take time.
That's not easy. That wasn't easy.
So I just have to do this high-speed dub and then I'd send them back. But it was so much fun going out there. If I was still, I always tell people, if I was still doing that today, I'd be totally content.
Yeah.
I miss it some.
Yeah.
I mean, even, I live in Lakeville, so my kids went to North when they were in high school. My son did not play football, but he was a baseball player, so a lot of his friends, and I coached his baseball team coming up, so knew a lot of those kids. They won the state title in 2018. And just so I would still, if the Gophers were home, obviously on a road, I had to fly. I would go. I'd just go sit and watch because I love it. You just the high school football scene is great. So I did that right up until then I moved to St. Louis and then I took that St. Louis job because KMOX is a pretty darn good station.
Oh, absolutely.
And I grew up a Cardinals fan and a Jack Buck guy.
There you go.
So I got to work with Jack for 1 year before he passed away. And then, but part of why I took that job, my wife grew up here, and her family, big season ticket holders to Gopher basketball, we did want to get into the Minneapolis market. And I thought, St. Louis, if I was still in St. Louis, I'd be totally content. I mean, what's wrong with going, watching, and covering the Cardinals every night?
No kidding.
Which is what I did for 5 years, hosting their pregame and postgame show. But the part of the attraction was, if we do want to get back to the Twin Cities, it's going to be an easier jump from KMOX than Cedar Rapids, even though I love Cedar Rapids as well. But anyway, so that's kind of my high school background, similar kind of
We kind of have
track,
a similar
right?
path. We both started in Iowa, ended up here. And, when we went to Phoenix, that was to the Arizona Republic. That was a huge jump from the Cedar Rapids Gazette. I knew a guy down there I'd worked with in Des Moines. Go down for an interview. I call the guy. Here they have an opening. I call the guy. I'm flying down there the next day. Spend a couple days, interviews, out to eat with people. I get home. The next day, they offer me the job. And we had a baby, and it happened really fast. And my wife was not fired up.
Yeah.
Her father had passed away not too long before. And it was a strange time, but I kind of said, honey, we're not going to get another chance like this. Yeah. And I had an aunt who lived in Scottsdale and owned some duplexes, and one of them was available.
Boom,
the stars were aligning. And we got down there and loved it. And it was different than it is now. You had the Phoenix Suns and Arizona State.
Yeah.
The Cardinals came later. They had AAA baseball and hockey. Nobody knew what hockey was.
Right.
And 2 of our 3 kids were born there. We still have very close friends and former colleagues there, and get down there not as often as we used to because our other son, who lives outside of San Francisco, we've got grandkids there. That's the draw now.
Yes.
But we didn't think we were going to be lifers in Arizona, and we kind of, again, pre-internet, you could call home and talk to your parents and our kids' grandparents. It was an expensive phone call.
Yes, it was.
So you'd shoot pictures with your little Polaroid or your little camera, take the film in, get triple prints. So each set of the grandparents and mail them. And that was really part of the reason we wanted to get back to the Midwest. I interviewed for a job in Fort Lauderdale at the newspaper there, was offered the job. We don't want to go to Florida. Yeah. And then we would have gone back to Des Moines, Chicago, Omaha, and ended up at the Star Tribune. Just perfect. Couldn't have been better. Got us basically home. Yeah. Grettinger, Iowa was 3 hours away. My mom's still living there in the house.
Easy little
She and my dad raised
down.
6 kids, and we get down there when we can. And living in the high school world, it's just, I can go on and on, Mike, about how great it is. And, I'm going to ride this bus with the Leroy Ostrander Cardinals. I'm going to go up to Wadena, in a couple of weeks to watch a 5 o'clock volleyball match and a 7:30 football game. And I can't imagine anything more fun. It's just...
No, the school spirit and everything that entails the high school athletics is just worthwhile. There's no question about that. But you mentioned the Register and the Gazette and the Iowa stuff. So when I was in Cedar Rapids on Tuesday nights, we would host a sports talk show. So a lot of the guys you mentioned, Ron Malley would come on that show a lot. Randy Peterson, who's still
Randy's still there.
Mike Halas at the Gazette.
I worked with Mike.
All those guys would come on those shows, and we had a good time. And Ron Gon Yonder, who at that time was the voice of the Hawkeyes.
Goose.
Goose. One of the voices.
Oh, there were
when I was growing up, there
6 or 7.
There were like 17 stations at one point.
There was no exclusive contract.
Yeah.
I remember driving and going out to the lake, Ingham Lake, outside of my hometown on a Saturday afternoon, if I could get my hands on the family car, listening to Jim Zabel at WHO call Hawkeye games. And so I'm a high school kid. I'm 16, 17, and I just grew up a big sports fan, reading the Des Moines Register, hanging out with the high school teams when I was a little kid. It's all I ever wanted to do. Thought about maybe education and coaching, but went into this. It's been perfect. But I can just remember being in that car by myself, listening to that crowd at Kinnick Stadium, and thinking to myself, that's where I want to be.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do. And I've been really fortunate to do that on the college level, the professional level, and now in this sweet little high school world.
Yeah, we have a similar. You're right. We've got these parallels because I grew up listening to Ron Yonder at WMT. My hometown, Manchester, is about 40 miles or so from Cedar Rapids.
Yeah.
Listened on occasion to Jim Zabel and the great Bob Brooks. We've lost Brooksy and Zabel.
Yeah.
But Ron, I worked for Ron at WMT for 8 years and then took over when he retired as a sports director. Lasted 1 year at that, and then went on to St. Louis. Sure. I just had lunch with Ron last month. Well, it was in June, so 2 months ago now. He's still doing great, and just you think about a kid who grows up similar to what in Manchester, worked for the guy he grew up listening to. In the summers, I'd listen to KMOX and WCCO. So then I get a job in St. Louis and work with Jack Buck.
Yeah.
So one time, John, in my career where I was a little. I don't know why. I think I have this just when I'm in the process. I'm never like, oh my gosh, I'm interviewing Kirk Cousins or PJ Fleck or whoever.
Sure.
I just get into this zone.
Right.
But when Jack Buck walked into the office at KMOX, and a weird story that they had the sports office had this sliding glass door, and we had the water cooler was in there, so people would come in and out all the time. So when the door would open, I'm on the job 3 days, and it already was like, that's a news guy coming in. So I hear the door open, I'm typing, and then I feel like someone's standing right to my left. I look up, and it's Jack Buck. I had no idea what to say. None. I'm just like, well, hello. And he goes, and I swear, this is the story. I swear to God, he says, so you're the new kid? I'm like, I am. You're from Iowa? I'm like, I am. Do you know Jim Zabel? I said, I do. Let's call him up.
Wow.
And I had at WMT, we were partners with WHO. So when Jim would go to Arizona in the winter, I would anchor his sportscast on WHO in the afternoon from WMT in Cedar Rapids. So I was on WHO all the time. I didn't go to Des Moines very often, but we just had that magical hookup, right?
Right.
So I knew that hotline number to WHO off the top of my. So I just dialed it up. Z answers. And Z loved me, so it was great.
Yeah.
So he's like, "Hi, Grimmer, how you doing? How's St. Louis? First week?" I said, "I got somebody who wants to talk to you." Hand the phone to Jack Buck, and Mr. Buck says, "Ohio State 50, the blanking Hawkeyes nothing." Because since Jack Buck was an Ohio State guy, that's how they met way back.
Oh, man.
Jack was working at the student station at Ohio State when Zabel was doing Iowa games, and they met back
How
then.
about that?
And so all these years, and so the story always went, Jim would tell people that Jack Buck offered him a job to join him to do Cardinals games. And most people and I were like, come on, Jim. Jack Buck didn't offer you the job.
Right.
So they talk for 40 or 50 minutes. I'm just sitting there. If I'm doing my work, they hang up. It's like the greatest 50 minutes of my life. I'm listening to these two guys, right? And then he hangs up, and Mr. Buck says, I offered him the job in 1957 to join me and Joe Garagiola. Oh, man. I'm like, oh, you did?
It's a true story.
And he's like, and so Jack's like, biggest blanking mistake he ever made. And I'm like,
it worked out okay.
Like,
it worked out okay.
That's a mistake because Jim Zabel's a household name and like a legend and a Hall of Famer and everything else. But anyway, so that, I mean, it's like a kid in a candy store here. And then get this job, and I had interned at CCO with Dark Star and John Gordon and Steve Ank and all these great. You probably worked with the Inkster over the years. And so it was just like I'm just bouncing to these places. I grew up thinking, geez, if I ever could work there. Yeah. And I ended up working there.
That's how I feel.
It's crazy, right?
My favorite Jim Zabel story. I didn't know Jim very well. Sat in a couple of bars with 10 other people and Jim sometime. But somebody was saying, does Zabel live in Iowa City? No, he lives in Des Moines. That's where the radio station is. Yeah, but how does he get from Des Moines to Iowa City, like for a football game, and back so fast? Well, apparently he had a deal with the state troopers. They just let that Cadillac go.
Just let it fly across as long as
that
he stayed
was the
awake.
joke anyway.
Yeah, because he had he would fall asleep at the drop of a hat.
Yeah.
So he had to make sure that I ended up doing some high school state tournament games with Jim in '99 and 2000. They put together a statewide little network.
Yeah.
So it was so fun to work with Jim doing the boys and girls state tournament for a couple of years.
I listened to his voice not just this summer. For some reason, it was a Title IX thing I was working on, and I was a kid. I was 10 years old. Wasn't even 10 years old. 1968 girls 6-on-6 state championship game in Iowa. Epic game, 116 to 110 in overtime. You can find it on YouTube. And Jim Zabel did the play-by-play by himself.
Is that right?
The whole thing. I don't even know if there were commercial breaks. They cut them out.
Sure.
The whole thing in the court at Vets Auditorium. Not one logo on the court. Not one word on the court. It was
just.
But
we
can talk about girls basketball forever.
Forever. That's a whole series of podcasts for sure, and that was a huge deal. Yeah. And then also at WMT, the guy who owned the station, you'll recognize his voice and name is Frosty Mitchell.
Oh, Frosty!
So Frosty was kind of the
Another
TV
legend.
voice of the high school tournaments, and some of the stuff he would say he'd try to get real clever with his words, and I've used some of those over the years. Like if people hear me say, and I'll say it during the football season, if the Gophers are on defense and it's a home game, and you'll hear me say the crowd's talking defense. Well, that's a total steal of a Frosty Mitchell line.
Oh, that's awesome.
And people will, that's a good line, and of course I thought of that.
Yeah, you heard it growing up. Yeah.
But so Frosty had all these great lines. A lot of people have heard the term tiptoeing through the tulips and stuff, and I don't know where that came from. But in sports vernacular, he invented it basically down there. So he owned WMT. He was my boss, and he liked me too, which was good because then he helped me from that overnight 1 to 3 a.m. show, making $12,000 a year to I just wove my way up through news, sports, doing high school games, and then eventually, I was doing pregame and postgame for Iowa football.
Sure.
And then I did 1 year of Iowa women's basketball play-by-play before I went to St. Louis. But Frosty Mitchell, Ron Gonder, all those guys, I listened to them, and then I ended up working and knowing all of them. It was amazing. Just like it's a don't wake me up.
That was how I felt at the Star Tribune, at the Des Moines Register.
Sure,
that's how I felt. And I did work with Sid, got to know Sid. I didn't grow up knowing Sid. I didn't listen to WCCO radio. Yeah. I was in Iowa. I didn't get this. I didn't know what the Star Tribune was. Yeah. The first time I heard Sid Hartman's name, I'm in the newsroom at the Des Moines Register. I'm a college kid. It's a Sunday afternoon. The day before, the Gophers and Hawkeyes had played football here at Memorial Stadium. And like the 4 guys from the paper had been there, writers, maybe a photographer. They're having a heated discussion. They're mad, not at each other. They're mad at somebody else. And I heard, I'll bleep out the obscenity, but I heard one of them say, that SOB thinks he owns that effing press box. And they were just so mad. And I kind of whispered to somebody sitting next to me, who are they talking about? And the answer was, that GD Sid Hartman in Minneapolis. That was the first time I heard. I told Sid that story once, and he laughed.
Yeah, there was some legendary story like in 1984. Sid got into it with one of the Iowa writers at the Metrodome. This was before. I remember watching that game on TV, and it was Lou Holtz was coaching, and Iowa was supposed to be really good. And I can't remember, but Minnesota pulled a big upset, and it was a big upset. And it might have been Al Grady or Gus Schrader.
Oh, yeah.
One of those two. And Sid, there's some story, somebody knows.
I'm sure.
But they got it, they got into it.
I believe it.
They got into it.
I think Sid may have been a little bit of a homer.
Yeah, maybe. And I think Al Grady or Gus Schrader might have been too. And it had there was some punt return, and they were so into this game. The story somehow goes like, I don't know if it was I think Iowa did return a punt. And one of the Iowa guys followed the punt returner down the press box going, go, which is, of course, a no-no. And so that they got into it. They got into it.
Well, it happened. I don't know if it happens now, but
it doesn't. Yeah, but there's so many of those good stories, and it's such a good rivalry. Yeah. And then when I interned at CCO with Steve Ank, he was the guy that basically
I know Steve.
And at that time, John Gordon was doing. They called it Prep Parade. And so they would do the scoreboard show. How John did the scoreboard show is I took that same strategy with me when I started in Cedar Rapids, where you'd get the districts And back then it was conferences.
Right.
This was before districts. It was the Lakes Conference and whatever. And I would type those all out for John during the middle of the week. And then we would wait for scores. And so John Gordon, this would be, this was after the Twin season was done.
Yeah.
And this would have been the fall of '92. So John would host prep parade, and I forget what it was a prep parade. Was a scoreboard show, and there was another prep where I would call high school coaches and set up interviews that John would record, and then they'd play them on Friday nights as well. Yeah. I remember there were some, Stillwater and Cambridge and all these great high school teams at the time, and I got to know them. Blaine, what was the legendary Nelson?
Dave Nelson.
Yeah. I set up an interview with him and John Gordon, and who was the Cambridge guy?
George Larson.
George Larson, and was it a Thole at
George Thole at Stillwater?
Yeah, so all these guys, I didn't know any of them.
Giants.
Didn't know of them because I grew up in Iowa. So I'm calling these guys, and this is again pre-email. John Gordon wants to interview for 5 minutes. We'd tape it like on Thursday, and then we would play. I forget how it went, but it was so cool. But anyway, Sid would come in, and he would always get mad at people if they committed to some other school, right? So it was like, that guy's going to Wisconsin. I remember when Carl McCullough. Remember him? He was like a great player for Cretin-Durham. That was the year I was interning.
Okay.
And he committed to Wisconsin, and Sid just lost his mind.
Sid took it personally.
CCO. He just lost his mind.
He'll never get a job in this town.
Never work in this town again, right? So it was, but that's the beauty of high school sports too, right?
Yeah. And Sid was into it. He would show up at state tournaments occasionally. If Eden Prairie football was playing, Sid would be there. When Tyus Jones was playing at Apple Valley. This is a classic Sid story. I kind of thought I was kind of new at the high school league. Figured Sid might show up. And here he comes. I can see him coming into Target Center. I'm at courtside, and I go greet him, put him right next to me. Somebody's got to help Sid, babysit Sid.
Yes.
And he runs to get ice. I've got a famous photo, a selfie I took of Sid with his ice cream. He didn't bring any for me. And so after the game, this is like a state semifinal. It had to be a semifinal. Apple Valley wins, and he said, "Hey, John, after the game, can you get Tyus one-on-one with me?" "Yeah, don't worry." So I go to the locker room, tell one of the coaches, "Hey, Sid would like to talk to Tyus first. Then we'll hand Tyus off to the mob of media." So I kind of guide them back into a corner off a hallway in the Target Center. Sid's got the old tape recorder going on the microphone. He's talking. They're having a nice chat. I can't hear. I'm kind of playing defense, keeping them so they can have their 5 minutes.
Their little time, yeah.
Okay, thank you. And thanks, Tyus. I'll send, go back down. The rest of the media's over here. And I do my other things. I'm just doing things in the hallway, waiting for the next game. I get back to my seat. Sid's got his tape recorder. He's pushing buttons and holding it up to his ear. Pushing buttons, turning up the volume, holding it up to his ear. And Sid, "What's wrong?" He says, "Hey, John, I'm not hearing anything here. I don't know what happened. Can you take a look see if you can figure this out?" I'm hitting rewind. I'm hitting play. I got the volume up. There's nothing on the tape. I said, "Sid, there's nothing recorded here. I don't know what to tell you." "Okay, when do they play again?" I said, "Well, they play tomorrow at 2 o'clock. "Okay, we'll do it again tomorrow." And he did.
Oh, my gosh. That's amazing.
Tyus, can we do this again with Sid?
He
had a technical
tape
problem.
Recorder. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was great. He wasn't fazed at all. I assumed it had happened
That's
before.
That's amazing. We mentioned Bob Brooks. He was another one of the legendary, like Iowa. When I was growing up, they had five guys announcing football, right? And there were basically 3 networks, and then for home games, 2 more local stations would pay this separate rights fee just to do the home games, Mason City and Iowa City. Okay. And then that slowly whittled down, and then in 97 or so, they went exclusive. Right. So Bob Brooks, legendary Hall of Famer, he's in the College Football Hall of Fame. And he was like Sid. He had this old tape recorder, and he would record it, and then back then we would have what they for lack of a better term, they looked like 8 tracks. Yes. And they were called carts, and so we would record a soundbite onto that. And then as you're anchoring a sportscast, you'd say, because at that time I'll say, "Dr. Tom Davis says the Hawkeyes, da-da-da," and then you'd hit the cart and you'd play the soundbite. So much easier now with digital. Right. Because you could even edit. Like Tom Davis was awful to cut up on carts because he would start talking and then get sidetracked and then get back to the point. Well, digital, if we had digital back then, we would have had, 15 seconds would have been the soundbite, but sometimes it took a minute for Tom to get to his point. Anyway, that's a sidebar. Bob Brooks would cue up the cassette recorder. He didn't have time or didn't feel like he wanted to do a cart, and he would just hold it up to the microphone. So he'd go, "Dr. Tom Davis says the Gophers are a good challenge," and you could hear the click,
play,
and then it'd play, and then you hear this click, and it'd stop, and then he'd set it down, and then he'd continue with the sportscast.
It worked.
all the way to the end. So I'm at an Iowa-Illinois game when D. Brown, remember D. Brown?
Yeah.
That was a really good team. Bruce Weber was the coach. So I was actually working in St. Louis at the time, and we kind of peripherally covered Illinois. Sure. It would give me a chance. Hey, I'm going to go back and visit my mom and dad, and I'll just buzz down and get some audio for Illinois for KMOX. So I'm down in the locker room. And Brooksy's walking down there with this old school, and it was older than Sid. Sid at least had this updated Sony that was pretty good. Like it was an expensive. That was like a $500 recorder. Shoulder strap.
Microphone.
This was like the old school, like 12 inches long by 6 inches, and it pop out. And so he'd just hold it with both hands up here. So D. Brown is I'm standing. I got a mic in front of D. Brown, and there's a couple of beat reporters. Lauren Tate's there, the legendary. He's the Sid Hartman of Champaign, great guy, and Bob Brooks. And he's standing there. He's holding this recorder up to his cheek up to D. Brown's cheek because it's this old tape recorder. And it's got the external, the built-in mic in it. And D. Brown looks. He goes, "What, man? Is that a VCR?" And it's like, no, it's a tape recorder. He had no idea what it was. He's like, "That a VCR, man?"
That's unbelievable. And now, go from that to like when I'm interviewing people in person, I've got an app on my phone.
Just a phone recorder.
Not only records it, transcribes every word. I email it to myself.
Yes.
I go back and listen to make sure sometimes it's not perfect.
Yeah.
But it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I've got audio. I've got a transcription.
It's not a VCR.
It's not a VCR in my pocket. No.
That's one of the all-time great stories. He also had a Brooksy brought in the tape recorder and set it in front of, I think Iowa played like Pitt, Pat Narduzzi, and he just sets the recorder down and clunk, and he tried to hit record, and he hit rewind, so in the middle of the answer, it's like, and he's trying to find the button, so finally hits the record button, and Iowa, I think, had kicked a 55-yard field goal to win it, so Narduzzi's not in a great mood anyway, and I think he's a little testy to top it off, but he, without even, he just looks over, looks down, things go, stop, hits record, he just looks at me and goes, "Now that's old school."
He got it. He got it.
Oh. He's like, "That's old school," and
awesome.
And that was it.
That's cool.
He continued with his answer. Those guys, we'll not see the likes of them because the times have changed. We just lost Vin Scully. The same. No one will be. For a long time, people tried to be Vin Scully. No one could be, and now, we've obviously moved on from that. But it's
so different.
It's
not better or worse.
No,
but it's different.
It's different. That's for sure.
And the whole. You talk about Iowa football having 5 or 7 different broadcasts, going. You can go down the dial and listen to whoever you like, and that's not coming back.
That's not coming back.
Occasionally there might be a high school game where there'll be 2 radio stations, but that's maybe the closest thing.
That's it. And now high school, like there's high schools now that are creating their own little network based through their own webpage.
And I think COVID, as bad as COVID was on everybody, including high school sports. If there's a positive, it's that everybody, almost every school in the state figured out how to live stream stuff because you couldn't come.
Right.
There was a limited number of spectators. So whether they use YouTube, they use Facebook, they have their own system. It's phenomenal. I mean, basically, and people used to be scared of that. Well, geez, will people come to the games? They'll still come to the games. They'll still come. But, it's great now because everybody does that for whatever they can. In the gym, it's easy. Yep. Football, people do it all the time. And maybe golf and tennis are a little different. But, they
might get a couple, though, over the course of a year.
Yeah.
And it's cool, too, because Grandpa and Grandma in Fort Lauderdale or wherever, they get to tune in and watch their grandkids.
Not that I'm any smart guy, but when I was talking to Dave Stead about this job he was creating, I remember we met for lunch a couple times. He really wanted it. Yeah. He really picked my brain, and I don't know at what point I thought, this sounds like a good job, but the internet was it's 29 we're talking about. So I was hired in March of 2010. But I remember we were having a discussion about the possibilities of putting high school games not on TV, online. Mm-hmm. And we had that same discussion. Yeah, if Grandma and Grandpa in Florida want to watch the Hutchinson High School volleyball team, wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah.
We both kind of shook our heads. We had no idea how that would work.
But not every match maybe, but there's certainly a chance. And now all the state tournaments are either streamed or on TV, which is great.
Yeah, everything. Yeah, that whole thing has revolutionized high school sports.
Has it kind of set the tone, too, for other states? Do they kind of try to copy that?
Yeah, we're pretty far ahead of the curve nationally in a lot of ways. Our adapted sports, we started that, I don't know, way before I came around, for kids who normally wouldn't be part of the team now. They have their own teams, and state tournaments are just the same trophies, same medals, same ceremonies. But yeah, I think it's funny. It's kind of hit and miss around the country. The National Federation of State High School Associations, that's like they're in Indianapolis, right next door to the NCAA. They have the NFHS network, which a pretty good number of states are on that. But you go to the NFHS network website. Well, now you got to find your state, then you got to find your game, and you can bookmark those. But yeah, I think we're ahead of the curve on that. And with our streaming of state tournaments, it's a revenue source for the league. Yeah. Originally, people could watch those games streamed for free. The streaming partner we work with eventually started charging, and people's heads explodes because you got to pay $9 to watch a state tournament. For 1 year, some people are mad. Now that's the way the world is. Yep. So it's a revenue stream for not only the streaming company but for the high school league, which means it's a revenue stream for all our schools. Yeah. So yeah, it's been phenomenal.
It's awesome.
It has.
Is there any big issues right now, NIL for high schoolers maybe?
That was, we name, image, and likeness for high schools. It's a thing.
Wow.
And our board of directors, just since the spring and summer, they have approved a policy. The high school league has a policy. And when this first was announced, I put it on Twitter. People say, it's all about the money for the high school league, because that's like the default reaction to it. How is the high school league going to make money? They're not.
Yeah, right.
I said, high school kids will be able to make a little bit of money, but the reason the high school league has a policy is so that kids stay eligible.
Yeah.
So the schools, and administrators, athletic directors, they've been asking the questions. What do we do with this? What if, and the example I've used, if you're in a small town and there's one car dealership and they buy an ad in the weekly paper every week and they want to put a high school athlete in the ad, they can do that. They can give the kid $20, but the kid can't be identified, can't wear a uniform, can't technically be identified as the star football player at the local high school, but everybody knows who they are.
Yeah.
It's just like the college NIL things. There's rules, and we have some high school kids right now who are making a little bit from this. Off the top of my head, I can't think of one.
Can they tweet? Like one of the things I know with some of the Gophers, and it still all has to get approved. Which, in terms of like, they just can't go into, I'm just going to throw out Al's Diner on campus, or they can't go into Tony's and if Tony says, "Hey, tweet out you're eating here," and all, it's on the house. I don't think they can do that. They could, but it has to get approved.
Okay.
And if it gets approved, then it's legal. So like Tanner Morgan could go in there, get it approved, and then Tony can say, "Hey, tweet it out. Say you're eating here.
Yeah.
It's on me."
As long as it's approved.
I mean, and some of that probably happens at campuses all over the country for years, right?
Sure.
I mean, Twitter, no, but different. Hey, meals
we'll
on
slip
me.
This,
But this is now technically you can do it.
Right.
You got to get it approved through compliance.
Yeah.
Could a high schooler do that? Could he go to Ma's Diner in downtown Laverne?
It's a great question. I don't know I don't think our policy has anything about social media.
Star
high school kids could always do that.
Yes.
I'm at McDonald's in Glencoe, or I just picked up I got a hot dog at Casey's.
Right, but they couldn't get. Like if it was you never could do this, it's free.
Right. So now
tweet it out. So I wonder.
That may be a gray area, Grimmer. I don't know. Might have to.
I'm always looking for those loopholes. I'm always looking for those loopholes. Shot clock. Is that starting this year?
Officially starting in another year. This coming basketball season, they're allowed.
Okay.
And I think basically it's going to be conference by conference this winter.
Yep.
If all the schools in a conference have shot clocks, they want to use them for conference games, they can.
Yep.
Not in section tournaments, state tournaments, no. But 22, 23, it's optional. 23, 24, every gym in the state will have shot clocks for varsity only.
Is that what would it be?
35.
35.
I think
that's the right number.
I do too.
Yeah.
And this debate's been raging for a long time, and it really got going when the National Federation about a year ago they basically said you can't have shot clocks. But 9 or 10 states have had them, some for a long time. Mm-hmm. Some for boys, some for girls, some for both, different classes. When the National Federation kind of took the shackles off, it opened it up. So I think it's going to be most states will have it before long.
Two things follow up on that. Now you need someone at every game to run it. To me, that might be the biggest issue of the whole thing, isn't it?
I think there were two things. The cost.
Yep.
Some of these tiny schools. What
does a shot clock cost?
couple $1,000 maybe,
Yeah,
depending.
that's a hit.
And some of these more modern gyms, the wiring isn't an issue. But you go to some of these 100-year-old gyms, and I've been in them.
Yeah.
You got to get an electrician in there, and it's not a simple job. But especially at smaller schools, athletic directors have told me we can come up with the money somehow. Booster Club, we'll do a GoFundMe, we'll take donations. We can pay for them. But now it's like hiring another official.
Yeah.
You got to have somebody. You got to have a backup person in case somebody can't make it. You got to have, and they have to be trained.
Yeah.
And I've talked to.
Because it's not as easy as you think.
No, it's not.
Because there's specific rules and.
Right. I've talked to high school basketball officials who also do Division II, Division III. And they were not optimistic that this was going to be a smooth transition on the high school, and it won't.
There'll be some issues, but you got to live with it.
It'll be fine.
Yeah.
And I've never taken a stance on it. Basketball coaches in Minnesota have wanted it, especially the big schools. Been pushing it a long time. They did a good job, and we're all going. Every gym's going to have them. I don't think it's going to impact the game severely.
Right.
We won't have those 1 or 2 games a year where one team
8 to 6
holds the ball.
halftime,
Right. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Unless they all miss shots. They'll be
that
back
could
and
happen.
forth.
As long as you're taking the shot.
Yeah, if they all were shooting like me, it'd be 8-6 at halftime anyway. I did in a high school game, 10th grade game at Dyersville Beckman. The coach told me at halftime, don't shoot unless it's a layup. And my buddies still talk about it. They call that the Grimm. You got grimmed. So if you went to Manchester, anybody around the class of 88, 89, or 90 and said you got grimmed, it meant you didn't get to shoot anymore.
You're not allowed to shoot.
Not allowed to shoot.
Well, my illustrious basketball career lasted through 10th grade. I was not a basketball player. Yeah. After that, I didn't play basketball. I just lifted weights for track. And, in Iowa, high school baseball and softball are in the summer. So you could be a 5-sport athlete. Yeah. Football, for me, basketball for first 2 years of high school. In the spring, I was on the track team and the golf team because my school was so small. Yeah. You had to do that, and then baseball in the summer. Yeah. But so I decided I'm not doing this basketball team any good. I'm not doing me any good. So as a junior, I don't go out for basketball, and the Grettinger Pirates go to the state tournament for the first time ever. It was addition by subtraction.
You're the good luck charm. Yes, the good luck charm.
I was there with a media pass.
That's good.
Sitting on the rail up there.
The start of the career, right?
That was one of them.
Yes,
well,
that's awesome.
Actually, the start came early in my 10th grade year. I was, surrounded by teachers and coaches. Yeah. But my English teacher, the late great Mrs. Sally White. And I've told this to a lot of people. The Grettinger Times, the weekly paper, then and now, then had high school kids writing about the sporting events. Yeah. And I don't know who'd been doing it. Somebody must have graduated. So school had just started. I'm on the football team. I'm in 10th grade. Mrs. White pulls me aside. Hey, John, the paper's looking for somebody to write the stories from the football games. You're on the team, and you can write. You can do this. And, of course, my first question was, will they pay me?
Yeah.
They will not. But for the guy playing offensive line, whose name is not going to be in the stories, by John Millea at the top. So I basically, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, I did that for every sporting event, whether I was on the team or not.
That's great.
Great training. Took pictures, of the games I wasn't. Of the basketball team, once I was off, I stood on in the baseline and took pictures. And then, my other, as I said earlier, my other thought as a career was education, teaching and coaching. And there wasn't anything close to a real journalist within 50 miles. There were no daily newspapers. Well, the Spencer paper might have been a daily back then. I didn't know anybody there, but I knew lots of teachers and coaches, including my mom. Of the ones I canvassed, the answer was unanimous. Education or journalism, everybody in education, without hesitation, said, oh, that's easy. Go into journalism. It's got to be better than teaching. And what I learned since was if I would have asked the same number of journalists, they would have said, that's easy. Go into teaching. It's got to be better than this. Yeah. So,
do you think if you didn't do that, you'd be coaching and teaching?
Probably.
I think that's what I would do,
teaching history and doing some coaching. Probably.
People said, if you didn't get into radio, what would you do? And I said, I'd want to be a high school baseball coach.
That's in my days of covering, especially pro sports. I asked that several times. I asked Ron Gardenhire one time in the clubhouse in his office. I was there with shepherding some high school kids interested in journalism. I would take them to a Twins game and a Timberwolves game and kind of let them get a taste behind the scenes. And I'm in there with these kids, and they're asking good questions. I think this probably was before the game. Dustin Morris allowed us to be in there. And I said, hey, Gardy, I got a question. If you hadn't been in baseball, what would you have done? And he stopped and thought for a second. It's really interesting, people who are so embedded in a career.
He's a lifer, right?
Yeah, and he he hesitated and he said, I would have gone in the military, John. I'd probably still be in the military today.
Wow.
Grew up in a military family. That's really interesting.
That is.
Yeah.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah.
We talked. We got sidetracked there on the shot clock. So the cost and then the staffing of it, because one of our family friends is at Lakeville North. She's in charge of scheduling. The person who runs the scoreboard, the person who watches the north entrance, the person who watches the south entrance, which oftentimes is my wife, and different things. And they get paid a little bit to do that, but the scheduling is a nightmare sometimes. So now you add another position that it can't just be anybody, because it's got to be someone that knows the rules and knows when to start and stop, and so that probably adds an additional layer. I
think we're going to see officials call timeouts to consult with the shot clock person. Yeah. I don't think we're going to be going to video replay.
Yeah,
we can do that at state tournaments, hockey and basketball. We can, and we've done that. But I don't think it's going to be a huge.
Yeah.
I think after a year or two, nobody will even notice.
It'll just be
till the shot clock gets down to 4.
But officiating, there is a shortage, and we're having issues where some high school games, because crews are going to have to work both Thursday and Friday, the games are getting pushed off of
football
Friday.
is a tough one because all these. Not every school has football, but there's a ton of
most,
football.
Right? I mean,
and Friday night is football, but a lot of Thursday games. This isn't new. Last couple of years, COVID didn't help. A lot of older officials in all sports decided I'm not going to do it, and they decide not to come back. Perfectly fine. But a lot of football games on Thursdays, Saturdays. Just to have enough
officials. There's not enough for one night.
There's not enough officials.
So a crew may they could work Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
Oh yeah, I've known crews that work 2 games the same day.
Wow.
And that's not optimal, but if they can get there, they'll do it. But it's across the board in basically all sports across the country.
What's the solution?
Yeah, I think there's 2 things. Fans have to treat, and coaches,
radio
and
announcers,
athletes, everybody has to treat officials better, because if they go away, we don't have a game.
Yeah.
And they could be paid more. And I don't know how you unlock that riddle, because that goes back to school funding. And do you have GoFundMe's to pay officials? I don't know. Do you have booster clubs pass the hat to pay? I don't know.
Right.
But I think that would help a lot. And across the country, groups like the High School League, the National Federation, this is a big, important effort to get people to do it. I've been talking about this so long. I thought it's time to walk the walk. So I'm in the process of becoming a certified track and field official.
Really?
Because I'm a big track and field. I'm a Drake graduate, Drake relays, the whole thing.
No doubt.
I'm a huge track fan. So I'm in the process of completing the requirements. I've taken my concussion training, and I got to do some online rules meetings. And I don't know that I'll ever work at a track meet, but I made the mistake at the state track meet this spring telling a couple of long-time track and field officials who are great at what they do, and I know these guys, when they heard me saying I'm becoming certified, they immediately want to get my schedule full of track meets, because John, we need people. We're desperate here. So
that's great.
I could measure at the long jump pit or the shot put, whatever. I'm not going to be. I told my wife I'm not buying a starter's pistol and a little ladder. Don't worry, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
But I just feel like I need to maybe set some kind of an example here.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, Drake relays. You mentioned that. We're already over an hour here, so we'll shut her down in a minute. But I do have a Drake relay story, and everyone has a Drake relay story. So I'm covering the Drake relays for WMT. We would go over and do reports. And Ron Gonder, who we talked about, he was the voice of one of the voices of Iowa football and my boss. So he's back at the studio, and he sends it to me for the report. And it was kind of a rainy morning, so it was. At that time, it was, I don't know if it's still natural grass in the middle. It might be the fake turf
and they've
now.
raised it up now. It used to be a bowl kind of down there below the track.
Yeah.
It's all flat now with
Well,
turf.
it's beautiful blue track, right? And who was a legendary announcer?
Jim
Duncan.
Jim Duncan.
Right. So
my great regret at Drake University, I never took a class with Jim Duncan. Who was like a radio guy.
Radio guy, and then he'd do the Drake relays, and that was my first, because I wasn't a track guy. I didn't have the cardiovascular system to be a track guy.
Oh, I didn't either. I was a thrower.
Man,
you don't need anything.
I was too small. As hard as I believe looking at me now, I was like 145 pounds in high school, so I couldn't throw a shot put. I had a good arm in baseball for some reason, but I would have to throw the shot put like a baseball.
There you
anyway,
go.
So I hadn't even gone to see my buddies at a track meet, and I was captured by the PA announcer at track meets cheering guys in and getting the crowd going. It was I just was captivated by that. And the Drake Relays was legitimately the first track meet I'd ever been to. I mean, I'd watched them, watch the Olympics or whatever, and I knew enough to do a couple 2-minute reports during Drake Relays. So Gonder sends it to me. He says, we're going out to the Drake Relays, Drake Stadium. Here's Mike Grimm with an update. And I'm like, okay, Anamosa's, I don't know the names. Tom Jones won the 100, and, North Cedar did this, and Cedar Rapids Jefferson guy did this. And it had rained that morning. So one of the guys that won had gone in to hug his coach, and he fell. So he's got mud up
down
and down
on the slope down to the football field.
I was trying to say that he got this guy won it, and then he went to embrace his coach, and I was trying to say he got dirty or he got muddy, and I said he soiled himself.
That's a different deal.
And Ron had that same reaction on the other end. He's just laughing. He couldn't compose himself. He was laughing so hard. Himself. And I'm like, what did I say? Because I thought, I didn't even know what I said. Yeah. I thought I would say, he got all muddy or whatever, and it just popped out, and I didn't even realize it. And he can't talk. So I forget who this guy was, but I'm like, he won the championship and then soiled himself. And Ron just breaks out laughing. So that's my Drake Relays memory.
I grew up going to the relay. Well, I didn't grow up going to when I was a student there, and high school state meets are there. And don't get me started on Minnesota could become a track state if we had a facility like that. We don't. Yeah. But I was down there not too many years ago for the USA Track and Field National Championships. We're there back-to-back years. All these Olympians, these famous track athletes, and my wife knows the drill. We're going to go to Des Moines. That's where we lived when we got married. We have family there. She's going to drop me off at Drake Stadium. She's going to go to the mall with her sister, and I'll call her when you can pick me up at McDonald's down the street.
Yes.
So this past summer, the World Track and Field Championships were in Eugene, Oregon. Mm-hmm. So, and in June, my wife and I celebrated our 40th anniversary. And I marked the occasion by testing positive for COVID that day. But early on in the year, we were kind of, what do you want to do for our 40th anniversary? What do you want? We can go to California, see our grandkids. We do that anyway. We ended up doing that, which was great. But I said, honey, the World Track and Field Championships, her eyes are rolling already, are over like 10 days in Eugene, Oregon. And she said, have a good time.
Yeah, enjoy. That'll be fun for you.
Yeah, have a great time. Show me some pictures when you get home.
That's amazing. One of the things I liked about Drake was it was high schoolers all over, colleges from all over, small colleges from all over, and then they even had some pros that would come in and do exhibitions. Yeah. It was just,
and they also, I think they still do middle school relay races for the Des Moines middle schools. Yes. Come in here as a 7th grader. Yeah. Run a relay in Drake Stadium, and after that, we're going to have a couple of Olympians on the track.
No doubt.
It's great. Great. I wish I could get down there more often.
You mentioned the facility. So the Gophers just built a $17 million track. Is there any? What's the deal there?
Here's my problem. Yeah. When they built that, the other option was, on the St. Paul campus. Yep. Where we already have a great women's soccer stadium, where there's plenty of parking. It's right by the fairgrounds, the golf course over there. They did the best thing for Gophers Track and Field by building it on campus. The footprint is really jammed in there. I've walked around. I haven't been there for a meet. I know people who work at meets there. They love it.
They just had the Big Tens.
Yeah, they had the Big Tens there this spring. One issue they invited the high school league to bring our state meet there. There were issues. One is just people are intimidated by the traffic. People coming from outstate. True. Even if you're going to go to Williams Arena, who doesn't want to go to Williams Arena? Yeah. But it's intimidating. Parking can be expensive. Just the in and out. And it wouldn't be any easier. The other thing was we have like a awards tent in the middle of the field. We have a medical tent. We have a procedure we do. The only place to throw the discus at the new track is on the infield. Well, we'd have to tell the discus throwers, we're sending you to the closest high school that has a good discus. Right? Gotcha. We don't want to move them off. Yeah. But I think if they had built it on the St. Paul campus,
by the soccer,
clearly the athletes on campus, they want their facility right there. Yeah. There's a private road between the two. I take it when I go to the state fair. We park at the stadium, at the campus, get on the bus, 10 minutes. In hindsight, maybe what they could have done, and again, nobody should ask me because I don't know anything, put a track on campus just for practice. Yeah. You don't need the bells and whistles. Just put a track there, put all the facilities, all the track athletes can work out all they want. Then build a super nice, I'm not saying Drake Stadium, build a competitive facility with 10,000 seats or whatever on the St. Paul campus where it's by the fairgrounds. Oh, that's easy. That's easy in and out. So I don't know. I'm not an expert, but I always tell people in Minnesota, growing up in a track state, which Iowa is because of Drake Stadium, Drake Relays, the high school kids run there. I know what that can be like. And, I lived in Arizona. They produce a lot of great track athletes because of the climate, but they don't have a stadium that like Drake Stadium. There just aren't that many. So, no, I'm not smart enough to answer anything, and that's the beauty of being me, Mike. I don't have any responsibility.
You get to drive. Is it still a Toyota you're driving around?
Toyota is so good to the high school league. I'm on my third Camry. This goes through the great people at Maplewood Toyota. They provide a car at the high school league for free. The high school league pays for insurance and gas. I drive it. The leases are 3 years. I'm getting near the end of the third one, so it's been 9 years. Just found out last week. The fourth one is being prepared now. The car is at Maplewood Toyota. They got to get the graphics all over it, and I'll be out there with the new one, and away we go. Yeah, I pile on the miles, too.
I bet. All over. Well, the state's so big. Oh. So big. Pat Royce had commented, who are the two baseball teams that played each other?
Oh, Roseau and Fairmont.
Yeah, and so
couldn't be farther
whatever
apart.
It was, and
the state championship.
So when he tweeted that out, I looked, and so I live in Lakeville. I said it's the equivalent of Lakeville North or South or whoever playing Jefferson City, Missouri. Yeah, that's the distance. And I've been within 20 minutes. That's the distance.
That's it. I was
crazy.
I've been to those Canadian border cities a lot. I was in Roseau for a hockey game. I've been to Fairmont. I know exactly how far apart
those are.
It's cool when they come to town.
Yes, exactly. No doubt. You have a sponsor for the preps today with John Millea?
Yeah, our longtime sponsor is the Pizza Barn in Princeton, right in downtown Princeton. Jody Stay runs the operation there. It's such a great booster of not just high school sports, but just community events in Princeton and the area. We're so proud that they've become our sponsor almost from the get-go. I mean, it was early on. We're past 200 episodes. Jody and the Pizza Barn have been there for most of them. And they have a food truck. Another food truck is coming shortly. Business is good. They survived the pandemic. They employ all these great kids in Princeton. Jim and I have done our podcast from there several times. Yeah. And if I'm going through Princeton and I can, I stop in just to say hi to everybody. And a pizza will appear from the kitchen back there. It's unbelievable. It's just a great amenity for Princeton. And they do charity things. They employ kids. And so the Pizza Barn in Princeton is number one with me, Mike.
Yeah, thumbs up, no doubt. We just added a new sponsor. We have a couple, but the newest one we want to talk about for us on the Go Gopher podcast, again, in its infancy comparison to you, just episode 33. Sure. Hopefully we make it to 212 like you are this week. But Affinity Plus, it's a local credit union proudly serving Minnesota since 1930. And from a Gopher standpoint, if you're a current Gopher student or an alum, you're eligible to join a financial that wants to build a meaningful banking relationship and put you first. You can meet with a local employee at any of the branches, including one right near campus in Minneapolis on University. To learn more or to find another way to connect, you can go to affinityplus.org/Go Gophers. Affinity Plus Federal Credit Union, federally insured by NCUA, and our thanks to them for sponsoring the Go Gopher podcast. John, this was fun. We could go another hour. We're already at an hour and 15 minutes here.
Couple of guys from small-town guys from Iowa.
Small-town Iowa
living
dudes.
The good life.
Exactly. I'm going to put this on repeat. I'm just going to listen over and over all week.
Let's go. Maybe all our friends and families in Iowa will listen to this.
No doubt. Yeah. Good to see you.
Thanks, Mike.
There it is, our co-podcast, John Millea and me. We hope you enjoyed the Go Gopher Podcast episode number 33. The Go Gopher Podcast is presented by Sunbelt Business Advisors and True North Mergers and Acquisitions. If you're buying or selling a business, visit sunbeltminnesota.com or tnma.com. We're also sponsored by State Farm agent Tony Hoagland. And again, welcome to our new partner, Affinity Plus Federal Credit Union. So many great people there. We're proud to talk about them. Again, I'd invite you to listen to past podcasts. And right now, please be sure to click the subscribe button to listen at any time, absolutely free. Please share the link as well on your social media channels. We'll talk again next week.